Jean Rodriguez, vocal producer extraordinaire, artist extraordinaire, engineer extraordinaire, all the above extraordinaire is our guest today. How are you, my friend?
Good, brother. Here, man. Happy to be in the house, in your house, man. So it's good to see you.
Likewise.
And,
yeah, Jay's
man.
house. You remember Jay's house? It's like
Jay's
my house, your house,
man.
Jay's house. We'll talk about
I
that.
I know. Yes, we will, man. That was a good time, bro. Oh,
So,
that was cool.
Getting into things, you've already met Chris. You met Chris some years ago, I believe it was.
Yeah, we met years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, at the time,
ago.
they were all working together. They were kind of, looking for new singers, new writers involved. And you were up in the area at the time. We went over and we just kind of, powwowed for that day. And it was really great energy. So it's good that we're all
I remember.
here.
That must have been like 12 years ago or something like that?
12, 13 years ago. It was before I moved down. So it had to have been about 14, 15 years ago.
It was a while ago. Yeah.
Insane, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's the beauty of music, right? It keeps everybody together no matter
Keeps everyone
distance.
connected.
Sometimes in between the time, it will always bring everybody together.
That's it, man. And here we are.
So here we are. We're in Port Orange, Florida, which is kind of central in Florida. Where are you located at tonight?
I'm in South Florida, in the Miami area. I live a little northwest of Miami, called area called Miramar. So I'm currently in my home studio, which it's pretty fresh. It used to be actually a dining room where I'm at right now. I closed it all off, and this is my official little home studio. So
how'd the conversation go with the wife about changing this to a dining room into a studio?
I know. It actually worked out, man, because this is kind of like the layout where dining room that we never ate at once. We've been in this house for like 3 years, and I swear probably once we ate at this dining room, because it was kind of like enclosed. It connected with the kitchen, but now it's like all about the open format. So It kind of worked out. Yeah, it was an easy sell.
I love it. More floor space is always convenient and much better to sell.
Yeah,
totally.
So are you originally from Miami? Can you share with the viewers a little bit about where you grew up and more specifically how you got involved in music? Was it something you started at a young age?
Yeah, no, of course, man. So I'll take you back. I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in a town called Bayamón, which is in the northeast part of Puerto Rico. And my first introduction to music out there was a choir. It was like an after-school choir called El Coro de Niños de San Juan, which is a children's choir of San Juan. And it was a very formal, very known choir out there in Puerto Rico. So that taught me a lot of technique and posture and stuff like that. But obviously at the time I didn't know, what was going on. It was just whatever. And I was like really shy, so I actually told my mom I didn't want to sing in front of people, so I didn't last too long. I was like, I can't do this. I would freak out. And so that was like my first introduction though to that world. And then it wasn't until I moved to Orlando, Florida, when I was 8.5 years old. And and when I went
and what was that? Don't mean to interrupt, but what was that transition like? Right, growing up in Puerto Rico.
It was tough, man, because, if anybody knows just the Latin culture, man, it's, we're very family. It's just everything, and I was so close with my cousins, and I have a lot of cousins. We're all like same age, and they're like my best friends. So, taking that huge leap. And, when you're born and raised in Puerto Rico, the U.S. seems like it's like, like the other side of the world
almost.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, and I didn't even know it was called Orlando. Like in Puerto Rico, you're growing up. That's just called Disney. Like that's what we're going
to Mickey's place.
We're going straight up. We're going to Disney. So but it was tough, man. It took me like a year. I know my parents were worried because I was just down. I was, till this day, I'm very prideful of where I'm from. And Jay, that. I'm always like, everywhere I go, I try to have like my flag around. Absolutely. And just. Keep those roots really close. But man, it's just one of those things where, later on in life, you're thankful of all these, these decisions. And now I get it. Now me being a parent, I know those sacrifices that you have to make, and that was something that my parents did to better, you know, our lives. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and they just wanted for us to have more opportunities. And you know, at that time in Puerto Rico, things were pretty tough, you know, and dangerous. And yeah, man, and Orlando was that place. And I rep Orlando, man. I love Orlando. I had a great upbringing in Orlando.
So we'll get into the Orlando scene. As we've all, whether it's through music, from the performance side as a musician, or from the technical side as engineer, or in the production element of it, we've all collectively have been through the scene in Orlando. And for a period of time, Orlando was really, you know, the central point in the music industry, as it happens throughout the years.
Well,
you know?
especially in pop, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the pop era, it started with the boy band type of era thing. Then it ventured out into, Matchbox 20, Creed, and then all these other groups started blossoming from Central Florida. And I think we were all, you know, kind of thankful that we were a part of that little engine that was running at that time, because we learned a lot.
100%, man. It's crazy that we were, you know, we're teenagers, right? But in this perfect time in Orlando where it was just such a boom musically, it was so motivating, you know, to be around, because a lot of these artists were, you know, friends of ours. Everybody was connected to, you know, the boy band scene, Backstreet, NSYNC. Like
you weren't connected through social media. You were actually, everybody was connected, you know, and that says a lot, you know.
Back then that was before all that.
And it's always cool to see it so close, right? Like, so when you see something so close and you know it's like a friend of yours that's in the group or etc., it really pushes you and motivates you to be like, oh, like that's so possible. Like, you know, he can do it. That's, you know, I go to the same school as he does. You know what I'm saying? So it was always like, oh, I could do that too. You know what I'm saying? Because it was so close to us.
Yeah, you're always in an environment that allowed you to be forward thinking. You know, you would see others around you that you would always be with day in and day out and see their successes. And rather than resist that or be against that, you really have to embrace that, because that's how you yourself climb up the ladder of success.
Yeah, and you're right, it pushes you. You know?
It does. And it's like that internal drive, that friendship vibe. You know what I mean? You always got this.
I mean, there's always you know, the it's just in our human nature, right? So like that rivalness of like wanting to be a little better than that singer or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, you also notice that all the doors and windows kind of connect, you know what I'm saying? So you never, and that's one thing, that's like the number one, you know, lesson in this industry. And I'm proven fact that it's just a circle, you know, and everything comes back around, and you always want to keep, you know, all those opportunities and open, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, cool. We don't want to age everybody here, but when you're talking about how things in this industry is so important to maintain relationships throughout. And you and I met in late 2002. And that's, put in time, that's 2 decades.
It's crazy, because as we're talking about this, and I didn't even, like, I have right here next to me a big signed poster of NSYNC, of all of them, with
we'll have to put that then on the show. You have to send us a picture of that.
Bro, I can show it to you. I can show it to you right here.
Yes.
But and it's funny. It's got the picture. It's got like the Britney Spears sticker on it, because she was the opening act for this tour. Like poster that I have here of the guys. It's funny.
And I mean that's European tour days, was it? Or was that their first US? Yeah.
No, European.
That's cool. That's some memorabilia. Hang on to that. That's going to be worth money.
I know. Crazy memories,
you know,
man.
But, you know, we met in 2002, and around the same time is actually when I met Chris as well. Yeah. The story on how I met you, I was working in Orlando at TransCon, needed some food, and the person who delivered the food happened to know you. And he played a song, and that song, I told him, I mixed that song. And at the time, there was no way you could have heard anybody else's music unless you had the physical CD or you were in the studio. And your friend Jose, a mutual friend of ours, Jose Casal, he was like, there's no way you heard this. And I'm like, well, I'm down here working with Manuel. And he's like, Manuel Seal? Wait a minute. So the stars aligned, and we didn't even meet until I believe a few months later when you came back from California to Orlando, and I had just moved here from Atlanta, and we started recording in my bathroom, vocals cut in the bathroom.
Yeah, man, bro, I have vivid just memories of exactly, man, what that bathroom looked like, and it's so crazy, man. That was really one of the first studios, or the one that I recorded at continuously, you know, like on a constant level, was at your house, man, you know, and that was great times. Yeah, I was living in LA at that time. You know, I had already gone through some boy band myself, you know, starting from the NSYNC to like the Xtina guys, and then I ended up in this group called Stilo. It was two friends of mine that we still talk today, Carlos and West, and we got signed to A&M Records through Ron Fair. And we moved out to LA. First time, you know, I ever moved away from home. It was a huge move for me, you know. I was 19 at the time, and that's when we started working with Manny O'Seal.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy how that dot just connected, you know, again, you know, it's that circle is just. And then once, you know, we started working, I would always come back to Orlando, obviously, to visit the family. And every time I would come back, I would go to your studio.
Yeah,
it was just that automatic drive to Port Orange, you know, me and Jose.
Totally.
Yeah, man.
It was man, at the time, it was just driven. And then we'd take our road trips to Atlanta. You know, I got pictures of that we could share when we went up there, just off the cuff. Meaning, you want to go to Atlanta tomorrow? There's some sessions up there. Yeah, let's ride out.
Crazy,
we just knew
man.
We had to go get it because it would never come to us. You know,
we had no clue where we were gonna sleep that night. Like we were just like, let's go. Like it's crazy, man. I love it, man.
And I think that's
all of those.
That's kind of what it takes to be successful, right? There's a lot of sacrifices involved. Whether young or as you get older, those sacrifices may change more into value of time, value of money, things along that nature. But when you're young, it's super important to take advantage of your work ethic and take chances out of the box, something that's against the stream of water, to see how you can survive against it and see how much you can learn and push forward from that. And I'm glad we've all...
Yeah, and you learn a lot about yourself, too, in the process of doing that. And you keep pushing, and then also you find what doesn't work. And, you know, if you quickly, you know, course correct, you know, then that's, I think, as you get older, you get better at that, you know, how to course correct really quick, you know, when something's not working. So
it's true.
Yeah.
For sure. I think when, at the end of the day, as much as we struggled at that time, I didn't even know we were struggling because we just loved and still, you know, what we were doing. You know what I'm saying? So I think like at the end of the day, when you have that drive and that passion, man, it's just like you're just laser focused, you know, and we were just chasing it, you know, and we were cool with that, you know. Obviously at that time we had no responsibilities. You know. So we could totally do that. But it was exciting, man, and it was my first time really where I really had to grow a thick skin, you know, because there's been so many points in my life where I had quote unquote thought like, oh, I made it, I got to this place, you know, and then it's just like, nope, bah, you back down, you know, knock back down, you know, and those are really the lessons that make you stronger, you know, and it took me a while to learn that. And it was all those stories that I went through with you, and we have so many of those.
So many. We'll start in one incident. We had a recording studio in Miami called Jay's House Studios.
Jay's House.
Right on Biscayne and 15th, right on the water.
Oh,
beautiful.
Man.
Right next to where you lived. Walking. We didn't have to drive anywhere, bro. We just walked and went up to the bar upstairs and then back down.
Funny, right by the National Park there?
Yeah, exactly. Right there. Yeah. Exactly. And just beautiful landscape. And man, did we make some amazing music. Did we not only make many of good drinks. I know I did. RC was it. Happy hour.
But man.
We had, at the time, there were, you know, iLocks. iLocks were the thing. And we had there wasn't iLock Cloud then. You had your iLock key. Okay. And we had an HD system. And that week we were working with a Sony Records group called, is it Hash? Is it correct, John?
Hash, yeah. Two sisters, Mexican. They're still, you know, they're one of the biggest acts in Mexico.
Sang on the Metallica record. Was the remake of that?
Yeah, I worked on that. on the
We'll have to maybe
Metallica.
post
Yeah.
some of that because that's
Man,
cool.
that was fun. But yeah, they're lovely girls. But it was our first time working. It was probably, I would say, it was my first vocal production gig ever, like professionally. You know, through Sony. And it was they came to Jay's house, to our studio. And
our little lab
go ahead with the story. Continue with the story.
So we were stoked because we were working on his album. This was his second album with Sony we were working on. 05, we did the first one. This was now 08-ish. And they're getting ready to pull up. And I'm like, our iLok had gotten so bent out of shape, literally bent out of shape, because they're so big and there wasn't the computer design. Anytime you move the computer and it tagged against anything else, it's going to break that connection.
Yeah.
Well, it broke the connection about 2 weeks prior to that session.
Yep.
And it would always work for us. We could just wiggle it and the light would kick on and it would recognize the license. Well, at this point, that casing was no longer. We had four little wires that had solder points that we were all connecting, trying to wiggle. Like, fuck that, you try it, John. I can't get it. No, this shit's not working. We were knocking down people's studio doors. Can I borrow your iLok? Can I borrow your iLok? He's not home. I'm using my computer. And we were on a studio floor with, God, they had to be like 20 recording studios there at one point.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a media center. So it was like a residential building, but it was one floor that was just a media center. And it was nothing but recording studios, an acting school, you know, a CD burning mixtape. Like,
remember
I
those?
mean, it was awesome, but we all connected.
We all helped each other out.
So
and
we were
luckily,
knocking on doors.
Robert Dante, shout out to him, Velvet Basement. He's like, I got you, brother. And we went in and looked at each other like, never again. We're buying an iLok. And that's when we had, right? The focus was all passion. As you were saying earlier, it's like this passion. It's like the rudimentary things. We could have just bought an iLok, right? Of course we could have. But the money, the rent, all that, we're like, this will work just fine.
Bro, we were counting like pennies at that point, man.
Yes.
You know, like we had the rent, we had the gear. It was a new venture for us. You know, you had just moved to Miami. You had your apartment right there on the bay. We were just trying to make our names for ourselves in South Miami, you know, and we did, you know, but it was those little situations, man, that, man, I would have to depend on you because, you know, you're always the technical, you know, like half, man. So when things like that would happen, bro, I would just like pray to you, bro, to like get it fixed, man.
Yeah, let's get through this. We got this. We got this. But what's cool about that, though, is that, you know, by doing that, and I think this is a value important for people who work in studios alone. If you start your career, say, as a musician, and you feel that you're not technically inclined enough to become an engineer, right? Or maybe you don't feel you have it in you because you don't understand all the terminology of it. It's similar to playing an instrument. You may not need to know exactly every meaning and every note and what key this is in. If you know how to play the instrument by ear and learn and adapt to it, you're going to be fine. And it's important to surround yourself with people who are willing to share knowledge with others, and not feel that they have to contain it to themselves. This is only for me and me only.
Well, back then, too, it was a whole different ballgame. Now you could just go online and you can watch all these courses and learn, you know, whatever, all the terminology, you know, in a week you could, like, you know.
learn how to master a record, at least get the basics of it.
You know, it's a completely different ballgame nowadays. And back then, you know, it was just all direct.
Dude,
knowledge.
I lived with a cheat sheet, you know, next to my computer that you made for me that just had all the shortcuts. And I just had that for like years, you know, like until like I finally just, it's just second nature now, you know, but obviously now you just Google whatever shortcut. But back then we weren't even.
But there was many calls back and forth, right? Yo, Jay, man, what's up, man? I got this shit going on. What's that shortcut to bring that up? And I think it's important. You don't need to learn all the shortcuts because there's hundreds of them. You really only need to learn an essential 10 to 20, and that is going to be determined on how you work, right? So once you have those locked, it becomes second nature for you.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. I think, like you said, it's like an instrument. You know, when you find your way of how to use it, there's really if you know how to get to point B, you know, then there's really no wrong way of getting there as long as you get the feeling and emotion, and the, you know, you capture what you need, you know, because I feel like what happens a lot in this industry, you get intimidated a lot with, you know, when this engineer comes and talks to super high tech, you know, like when somebody's not super tech savvy, like I learned from you. You're honestly like, you're my biggest, you know, teacher when it comes to studio life, you know. But even till today, you know, like even with the success that I've had, I know I'm good at what I do. You know what I'm saying? And I can, but sometimes when, you know, like when you get with somebody that's like too technical, it's like, listen, you know, like I know what, you know,
bring me back down.
You know, and so basically what I'm saying is like, don't get intimidated by that, you know, because you find your way, you know, of how to use that tool, you know, and you get to that point B, you know.
I think everyone experiences that at every stage and every level. Like even if it's, you know, in the tech world, and you know, somebody else has been down a rabbit hole you haven't been down.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and they're like, so they'll talk to you about this rabbit hole they've been down, and you have no clue what they're talking about. And it happens all the time, even with me. Like in I have my head down a lot of different rabbit holes with, you know, gear and building things. And
and still, if you want to get technical, John, you think I'm tech. My man here is about 10 times powerful tech.
But then I know people I could point to that, you know, that
feel the same
just
way.
Like they talk to me, and you know, that's just how it always is. So I think that's excellent advice, John. You know, it's you know.
I remember you. I mean, you had a lot of patience with me too, Fly. Like I remember you just teaching me routing. You know, like of like how to route, you know, plugins and stuff. And I was just like, what? Hold on, you out that like, you know, I mean, now it's second nature, you know, but it's always cool to when you find somebody, you know, like that you can really learn from and like, again, like you were that person for me, you know? So when you find that team, you know, and that person, just make sure, you know, you attach yourself to them and learn, be a sponge, always be a sponge, man. I'm still a sponge.
No doubt.
Till today, you know?
Well, I appreciate the kind words and everything you stated, and you've definitely helped me out, you know, in some personal matters that you and I both know about, and I'm grateful for that, too. You've humbled me as a person, and I've learned a lot, you know, to be a better person because of you. So I thank you for that, too.
Thanks, man.
And appreciate enough of the sobby stuff, but it's all love. So that led to you then, you know, after the studio thing, we kind of, you know, you're like, hey, I got this opportunity, Jay. You know, what do you think? Let's do it. Go for it. And that was the opportunity to go on tour with Mark Anthony. And that's kind of, you know, is what set you up a little bit to where we are today. So if you could kind of do a quick synopsis of where you were with the Mark Anthony situation, how that came about, and then to where you are today. And then I want to get into your recording techniques and the challenges you face from working in so many different studios.
Cool. So, yeah, man. So at that time, when I was in Miami, I had moved down from New York. So after LA, I went to New York. And when I was in New York, I met musicians out there that were also playing with Mark. And they were like, some of them were part of my band. And when I was in New York, I would just try to play as many shows as I could. I was doing just all R&B nights.
Correct.
Mario, Urban, Juanito. And but that was that. I didn't know, you know, obviously I'm always been a big fan of Mark Anthony, you know, as a Puerto Rican and just as a musician, period. So then after I moved to Miami, and I did these 2 records with Sony Latin that we worked on, I was kind of stuck in a limbo, typical situation where I could feel the label was just kind of shelving the project. I've always been very into my genre, you know, which I'm still into today, which is just Latin R&B, and it was tough, you know, it was tough to get that plane to lift off, you know, and at that time, my wife had just gotten pregnant, you know, and I was literally just doing little shows here and there and doing vocal lessons on the side, writing, you know, doing little vocal production things here, just trying to grind, trying to get it. And Mario, guitar player, who's still with Mark Anthony today.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, so I went to New York to go do a showcase for Sony. And every time I would go to New York, I would always call these same musicians. And I called Mario. I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to do a little showcase acoustic. You know, can you roll with me? Mario's like, the nicest guy. You know, Google him, Mario Guini, crazy talented guy. And it was in this showcase that he was like, hey man, you know, our background singer just just left. We're actually looking for a new background singer. Like, you know, would you be open? And I'm like, bro, like, this timing is perfect, you know, like I'm super down. So I went through the process. I had to talk to Angel Fernandez, who's still the musical director of the MD. And Angel had actually heard of me. And making a long story short, I flew for my first gig with them. It was at Cipriani's. And this is when Mark and Jen were still together. So it was actually, I had to learn like a small set. It was like 6 or 7 songs, but it was mostly Mark and then like 2 or 3 Jen songs, you know. And I did backgrounds. And right after the show, it was kind of like just my test run, you know. And right after the show, Mark, you know, comes up to me. He's like, welcome to the family, you know. And I was like, whew. And it just felt, yeah, man, it was somebody you idolize, and it was just a relief, you know, as something consistent, you know, and knowing that I was about to, you know, my wife was pregnant, and it was perfect timing, man. God just works in, you know, in the craziest ways, man. And he came through, and I lasted with Mark about almost 12 years.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you flew.
And didn't you
by,
just
man.
recently at the Grammys do another performance with Mark? Did that come through, or did that not go through?
Yeah, no. So I left Mark that gig about 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. You know, it was cool, but my vocal production, and I really wanted to dive into the artist thing again, you know, like just when I thought like I had hung the gloves, that's when, you know, Coast City was born, which we can talk about that later, but basically just released this one song to this new project, and it started kind of getting traction, and I just found this new world again, you know, for being an artist. And then I kept getting more vocal production gigs, and they started conflicting a lot with Mark's shows. And when you're with that type of artist, caliber of artist, you know, they really don't want you to send subs, you know, like they want you to be loyal. And I understand that. And I didn't want to, I stopped, you know, I was losing opportunities, and it took me almost 2 years to finally make that decision, you know. Like my wife was like, just do it. And, you know, something so consistent. And I
remember
finally
talking with you on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, man, it was tough. It was tough, man. And because Mark is somebody that every year he's gigging. Every year he's touring. You know, you can count on at least 80 shows a year, you know, and you can make a decent living, you know. Yeah. But then again, you're like, all right, these 12 years just went by like this. And is this my title for the rest of my life? Am I gonna be Jean, the background singer, you know? Like, and I was just like, nah. Nothing wrong to background singing. Like I still, you know, do it today. But so anyway, so took that leap of faith, and it was a great decision. You know, I just really focused into me, you know, my project and the vocal production. That's when it really kind of exploded, and it's just been, you know, pretty busy since. Yeah,
I'd say so. So could you give the viewers a little bit of some of the artists that you've worked with over the past few years? And then after that, I want to get into how you go about recording vocals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So actually, before we get into this, I just remembered. So I jumped on stage with Mark the last Grammys, November, Latin Grammys.
Right, yeah.
But it was because I was out there with Xtina Aguilera. We produced her performance and did the arrangement for her performance. And one of the background singers, William, tested positive with COVID. So I was there, you know, and the MD was like, bro, can you just, you know, do us a favor and just jump on stage? Like literally this was like the day of the show. He's like, here's the song. And Xtina had just performed. Mark was going right after her. So I got off stage with Xtina, and then I just jumped on stage with Mark and just did my thing. And then it was fun, man. I hadn't played with them in like 4 or 5 years.
It's a good reunion.
Yeah,
I bet everybody who didn't hear about you being on stage, when they saw you on stage,
man.
Like, hey, my man.
It was pretty awesome. It was pretty cool, man. And those guys, you know, it's an extended family, man. When you're on the road with I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
guys, you know,
it's a brotherhood at that point. It is an entire family.
Man. And those guys, there's musicians there that have been there, you know, 30 plus years, man. So it's a really, so it was really nice, man. It was really nice to play with them again. And anyway, so that's how that happened. But yeah, so transitioning into, what was it? Into the vocal production role, right?
Yeah, going into the vocal production and some of the acts that you've worked with recently.
Yeah.
And some of the challenges that you may have faced, because I know you're on the road a lot, you know, even as vocal production. So it's challenging always for engineers, let alone creative people, to get into a new room, a new environment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you're restricted with what you can take with you on the road because of travel restrictions. Yeah. Share with us, please. That
man.
part.
So, you know, as far as artists that I've worked with, I mean, at that time, I remember I was working consistently a lot with Prince Royce, and that opened up a lot of doors as well, because that was my first Grammy win, was with a song that we did with him and Shakira. And I remember that song we did we recorded it in Toronto, believe it or not, Canada.
Hey, if you don't mind, we did something for Prince Royce for American Idol. Do you remember that? And J-Lo. We had to do the dance segment for the American Idol show. And Casper was sending us the videos of how he wants the sound effects to move and everything. I still got all that. Yeah, that was in 16. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, we did that. So
those are fun, man. And we still do a lot of those award show performance, you know.
Those are great to put together because you can have more creative freedom, right? You know, just something more. We love working on those, man. But yeah, so that really opened up a lot of doors because Prince Royce was really, it was like at the height of his career, and I was right there behind him. And then, man, there's so many artists, you know, from Karol G to obviously, I mean, how could I forget, which I will never forget. The one that really, really opened all the doors for me was when I worked with Beyonce, you know, and that was when Mi Gente came out, the song with her and J Balvin. And J Balvin's manager, Rebecca Leon, which I kid you not, I send her messages like randomly every so months just to say thank you. Yeah. Because she opened up a lot of doors for me. That one call and the success of that song, you know, Beyonce singing in Spanish and sounding the way she sounded, and obviously that song in that year, it was 2017, 2018, and Despacito were the two biggest songs. And that really... Wait a minute. So hold on. That year? Yeah, Tank, the podcast pooch.
Yeah.
Yes, man. Tank. We keep it casual around here. He's not going to get on the couch, though. He's not allowed on this couch.
I love it, man. Bro, so
wait, hold on. So
really...
wait a minute. You just said that was... So Despacito was the biggest record, and this was the second one that year?
Yeah, it was.
So it was a family occasion that year? I didn't know that, man. Bro. Wow.
Yeah, man. It was a big highlight because that really blossomed my vocal production technique, you know, really showcased with that, and that's when the calls really started coming in. So who else? You know, the Weeknd, I worked with the Weeknd as well. I do all of Anitta's stuff. You know, we just had an amazing year with Anitta. If you guys don't know Anitta, she's like the biggest Brazilian pop star, which is now crossover Latin and American pop star. And we did Envolver last year, which was, it broke the World Guinness Book of Records, like in #1 in Spotify streams. Like, yeah, it was really crazy. Like, it was, we achieved a lot with that song. And so I do all her stuff. Ricky Martin, you know, actually this Grammy is with Ricky. You know, I got to.
Did you got 5 of those this year?
So yes, I got 4. I got 4 this year. I got 4
but the
this
one
year.
was for engineering, right?
So, bro, that's a long story.
That's so okay, man. They're usually long stories.
So check it out. No, I'm gonna let people know the truth, how this shit works, man. So I could have gotten that win because technically, if you look at all the credits, I'm an engineer and a producer on Rosalia's album. Rosalia won Album of the Year, so I got a statuette on that. You know, Xtina Aguilera won the Best Vocal Pop Performance, so I got one for that one, and then two certificates. You know, because the way it works is you have to do more than 51% of the album. You know, and that was with Sebastián Yatra, who got another award, but I worked on like 4 songs in that album, and then Rosalia won also Best Alternative Artist.
Oh, nice.
But so that one I get the certificate. But the 2 statuettes. So Best Engineered Album, I should have won that. But what happened was that the label didn't correct the credits in time, and the Grammys have a cut date, October 4th. If you don't have all if the label doesn't
who in the
submit,
office screwed that up?
Exactly. Bro, if you see the thread of emails, man, because it just happens a lot, and I can understand, like, so many credits are so important, man, to people like us, you know, that work a lot behind the scenes, you know. And when you work on a song and it just goes, you know, back to the A&R and the manager, you're just hoping, you're sending out emails. I'm like, you know, you're just hoping that everybody plugs in the credits the right way because of a situation like this, man. And unfortunately, you know, I mean, I got everybody involved, you know, from Rosalia's manager, everybody, and everybody understood the situation, and they were sympathetic and no, hey, you should have gotten it, but the rules were the rules. So I kind of just, have to swallow that.
That's all right.
one.
Well, you got it.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
That's legit. So
it's
engineering,
all good,
right? So
That's wild.
Yeah, man.
That-
So this one, and then this one is a really cool story, man. Like this was my first statuette. And this whole album we recorded during the pandemic, virtually.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, bro. So Ricky was in LA at his house. Ricky's other engineer, who's his main engineer, his name is Enrique Larreal. Super talented. He's in New York. And then I'm producing his vocals from Miami. And we're all in the same session, controlling his computer in LA. Yeah.
That's
wild, man.
That's crazy if you think about it.
That is crazy.
Like, and that's
bro. We
the end
sent
result.
him.
Sure, yeah.
the energy. You know what I mean? To capture that feel through the computer.
No, it was pretty nuts, man. Enrique did, he sent him the computer, like
already
he
set
basically,
to go.
everything was ready, where all Ricky had to do was just power up, you know, and then we would talk to his assistant. We had a camera facing all of the gear, so we would literally, like, we could see the gear as he was like cutting. He's like, yo, you know, we would tell him to just nudge it one down.
Stand there.
And it was
Right, yeah.
Insane, man.
Not there.
It was cool, man. And that whole album, bro, recorded with everybody in 3 different coasts, man, and it won the best vocal performance.
Has anybody talked about that story? I mean, that is a challenge.
So we reached out. There was somebody that did a write-up, but I felt the same way. Like, me and Enrique, the engineer, were like, bro, this is pretty crazy. And now obviously this is happening more, you know, like the working through what do you call it? Just the virtual sessions. But at that time it was like the beginning of the pandemic, you know. So it was something like we really had to like crack our heads of how we were gonna do this with, you know, keeping low latency, and it worked, man. It worked. As soon as the sessions were done, it would automatically upload to the cloud. So I'm already downloading everything and comping everything. And it's a different technique, because usually when I'm in person, you know, I cut vocals. I usually cut the lead first, and then I let the artist kind of just chill for a little bit as I do like a quick comp, so I can keep the session moving, but at least I have something good enough for us to keep stacking too. But when you're working with somebody virtually, your time is very limited before they're fused. You know, you got to keep them engaged. And
yes.
So, you know, I'm Enrique's controlling, and I'm telling him like, hey, just use this take. As soon as we get a good take, I'll be like, just keep this one. So we're hoping and we're stacking to takes that aren't really the comp. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just kind of like have this extra memory bank in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like
and remembering. Yeah.
And then it was not to like get all the files that I really start putting the puzzle together. But it was an interesting approach, man. And it got done. I got to record Sting, bro. I got to record Sting in London in this album.
I remember that. I remember you called me the next morning after it happened, and I'm like, hang on, I just woke up. Did you say Sting or Ding?
Bro.
And you're like, Sting.
And it was all virtual, man. All virtual. He was in London, and I'm literally in this house. I was in this house.
Wow, man. So real quick,
man.
What's your choice? What's your chain? Does it change? Because I know for you yourself as a vocalist, singing wise, you have a preference for your own vocal. Does it change for artists for you?
Yeah, kind of. I do have, like my usual go-to, and it's changed a little bit throughout the years. But my current one is, which is very famous. Obviously the Elam has become my go-to. It's a fucking 251 and 1073 through an LA2A. If not the LA2A, then the Tube Tech CL1B, I love as well. But I have a Tube Tech here. It's actually had a little noise last week, so I sent it into my boy. But I usually have the LA2A here, and then I have another studio where I have the CL1B.
Nice.
And so those are my two favorite ones, But I do use sometimes Millennia, Priest as well. I do love the John Hardy M1. I still use that a lot, actually, especially if I'm stacking a lot.
That was the first one you got for your... I saw the picture. I saw the video you posted a few weeks back on Instagram about the studio closing. That tugged at my heart, bro.
I haven't done I'm still gotta collect my, and put it, like I want to post something about, because that studio, for those who don't know, in Miami, I had it for like 12 years, and so many people came to that studio. It just became like a little famous stomping ground. And it was just like a warehouse, but it was just a crazy vibe in there, and I closed it down, man. But I have a new studio and another warehouse. And the studio, I gotta send you the pictures. I was actually there all night yesterday putting up panels. I have like, my fingers are all cut. So it's I had to just turn that page, man. It was that time. But yeah, so the M1, going back to the John Hardy, John Hardy, I started working with that preamp at Crescent Moon. Crescent Moon is a studio down here in South Florida, owned by the Estefans, Gloria Estefan and Emilio, and it was actually the studio to go to back in the 90s. This where like Shakira, produced all her like first hits. That's when Sebastian Chris was like one of the main producers and engineers, and that studio you still go to today, and they have M1, John Hardy's everywhere. And they're very pro John Hardy. So it wasn't until I worked there that I kind of fell in love with it. And it was super co-signed by like everybody in Miami, Sebastian, Chris, Jose Rivera, who does front of house for Mark Anthony. There's a lot of big fans, friends that I trust, and I got it, and I still use it. I love it, So I use that one a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you come up north this time around, we're going to introduce you to some AudioScape gear.
Yes, man.
Well, it's interesting how you discovered that equipment. That's how a lot of people discover our equipment, is all word of mouth. You go into another studio, you see it, you use it, you get hands-on with it, and then they come and email us, or or they buy something, when we do our inventory drops. So it's the same exact way, you were talking about. It's just
And then tonight we're actually using the preamps, the 1290, the V1290s, and we're using the microphone here by...
Oh yeah, we're using a Lawton Audio mic. I don't know if you've heard of them. But yeah, I've been friends with Trent, who awesome. Works with them at Law and Audio, and they sent us a mic actually to use for this podcast. It's the LS208.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has some really cool shelving features at 10K, 8K.
I got a couple of their mics actually. I got their Eden and their new one, their LA320. They just released. Yeah. And
nice.
Yeah, but we got some nice things happening up this way.
I can't wait to check it out. I mean, I know you've been telling me about it, and I trust your ear. So I look forward to working on it and hopefully get one down here so I can record some people through it for sure.
You got a 500 series rack? You got an empty rack space there?
I do, man. This is where my computer goes, which I'm actually on right now. I have it on the other side. And then this is where the LA2A goes over here. So, yeah, I mean, it's, right now I'm pretty simple here. I just have my Apollo, the quad, and the 1073. I have a Rupert Neve.
Portico.
This is the 50... Yeah, the Portico 5017.
Yes, I remember that, bro.
Believe it or not, dude, I did a lot of records. I still have the Avalon.
Remember that?
The 737,
I
of course.
I have Mike here, bro. Take it.
I have it at the other studio over there. I have the M1. I have a Vintech. I have a few other toys over there, and I have a few mics, a few other Telefunkins, the SM7Bs.
See, that's another cool thing about
still rocking.
Staying in touch with your music friends throughout all these years is you can whip and swap out gear throughout the years. Like, I don't need this anymore. You want to buy it for like a really cheap rate? Sure, I got this. You want to take this off my hands? Yes. And that's what's cool about being in the friendship and music and all that throughout the years.
Yeah, man.
Well, hey, I'm going to bring aboard Trevor, all right, cool. for a quick 15-minute sit-down with you. Thank you, John, so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know you've been extremely busy. Is there anything that the viewers should keep an eye out on musically coming up, or how can people connect with you on social media?
Well, dude, first of all, man, I'm super happy for everything you're doing, Jay, and this show, it's an honor to be here. I've been following you guys since your first episode. So, I appreciate you guys bringing me on, your family, so you can count on me always. And as far as the viewers and everybody watching, you can follow me, on IG, which is just Jean Musica, Jean spelled like Jean, Jean, Musica. And then also I have my project, which we didn't really talk about too much, but Coast City. And that's me and Daniel Flores, who's started as my MD, my musical director, and it's now my production partner out here with the project Coast City. So we basically, a lot of the music that I'm dropping is through Coast City. So if you want to listen to some of the music, we just released a single last month called Aceite y Agua, which means oil and water. Nice. Really cool song. And so you can find that. And and we're dropping another single here soon.
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 Well, maybe we can get you and Danny, which is also a good friend of mine. And please,
man.
Danny, what's up, my man? We actually did the last Coast City album together. All of us collectively in an Airbnb. And wow, that was awesome. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of that project, because that was really fun, man. Really was.
Of course, man. We went back to
the roots,
Daytona
right?
area.
Into the house.
But that was the whole purpose. I hadn't been to Daytona in a while, and the whole album, the concept was like about the, high school days, college days, like going to Daytona, the
spring
MTV,
break.
Spring break. We wanted to capture that vibe, so we went back to Daytona.
Yeah, it was great. Well, let me go grab Trevor. Thanks again, John, for everything, and definitely continue success in your future, my friend.
Thanks, brother.
All right, let me get